Overwatch is one of the most unique games ever released, blending elements of modern shooters like Halo with the strategy of games like League of Legends and dropping it into the Team Fortress class system. While Overwatch as a game is pretty unique to itself, some roles or characters can feel a bit familiar or recycled, like Widowmaker as your typical sniper hero, or Mercy as a typical medic hero. However, I believe that Overwatch's tank role is the most interesting and complex experience that the game has to offer, which really can't be replicated even in spin-off games like Marvel Rivals. In this video, I'll be doing a deep dive into the tank role and how you can understand the fundamentals and start working your way up the ranks. My name is Karkanos. I'm a champion tank player peaking at 154 on the top 500 ranked ladder. I've been playing the game consistently since early 2017, and I've been scrimming and competing in tournaments since 2020. I'm currently the coach and captain of my university's Overwatch program, competing in ECAC, where we've had multiple podium finishes in just a few seasons together. There are three main jobs or concepts that you need to be aware of on tank when starting your climb, those being taking and holding space, pressuring angles, and managing resources. Let's start off with what is space. So space is just a slightly more complicated way of talking about map control. The reason we say space rather than map control is because there are certain heroes that can hold or pressure certain space without necessarily being in it or controlling that area. Like Sigma or Domina holding space far in front of them with their long-range damage, or Doomfist being able to pressure high grounds close to him with his hypermobility. When we look at space as a concept, there are three main categories of space, those being controlled space, contested space, and open space. We'll start with controlled space. This is an area on the map that you and the enemy each have firm control over. If someone on your team were to walk into the enemy space without proper setup, they would die. Same goes for your space. So, we have a little example setup here of two team comps and what would happen if somebody were to walk into controlled space. I want to preface that with controlled space, something that we need to think about is that without proper setup, right? Obviously, at some point, we're going to have to walk into the enemy's controlled space or pressure them out of their controlled space. But as a general rule of thumb, we cannot be operating within their controlled space. So, without repeating the word controlled space too many times, let me give you an example. So, vaguely, on these two comps and where they are set up, right, as a kind of group of five, which isn't too common, but just for the sake of the argument, these are the two controlled spaces, right? So, for example, if my Cassidy were to say, you know what, I'm done, this team fight's boring, everyone's sitting here, we're poking, your Cassidy says, I want to enter their controlled space. What's going to happen to this Cassidy is he's going to die immediately, right? Your Cassidy is gone, and he's gone because he went into the enemy's controlled space without proper setup, without help from you. He went past you, he went right into their Reaper, their Reinhardt, and their Sojourn. It seems pretty self-explanatory your Cassidy's going to die, right? So these are the two spaces that you're operating in. You as the tank player need to, in this case, hold your controlled space, meaning don't let the Reinhardt go over here, while also pressuring their controlled space, right? I need to put pressure on their team so that way maybe a little bit of this area becomes my area, right? You kind of bring this circle in. We'll get into that later, though. The second type of space that we're going to be talking about in this video is contested space. Contested space is space that both teams are pressuring and maybe are even positioned in, but don't necessarily have control over. This can include things like off angles, cart pressure, or even space between two tanks. So we're going to use the same example that we have here. In my opinion, the space that would be considered contested space is going to be this little yellow circle right here. Boom. That is your contested space. So, for example, using our Cassidy from the previous thing, if our Cassidy wanted to, he could walk into the contested space, right? He's going to get shot by the Reaper. He's going to get shot by the Soj. But he's with our team. He is still technically within your controlled space. He is just trying to put pressure on this area of the map where both teams are trying to fight for, right? This is a concept that we're going to talk about later with holding space, but this is essentially the line, right? This is the line where we need, as the offensive team, to be pushing this line further and further and further back until eventually we get into a spot on the map that we want. But generally speaking, this yellow circle is the contested space. This is the area on the map where both teams can sort of exist in it, right? I can be here, the Sigma can be, or the Reinhardt can be here, and there's not too much problem. No one's going to explode as soon as they walk into contested space, but it's not safe for your team like how controlled space is. The last type of space we're going to be talking about in this video is open space, which is the easiest to describe. This is the space usually behind or around both teams that is occupied by no one. The space is usually open for a reason, mainly because it's not pertinent to the current fight. So using our example again, we're going to take a look at what open space we have. So I would say a big one right off the bat is back here. This is open space. The reason it's open space is because, as we said in the description before, it's not pertinent to the given fight, right? If, like, let's say, if we all move back here, sure, we can all move back into the open space. This is open space. We can take it freely without, needing to fight for it. But that doesn't do anything for us, right? We need to be moving towards this objective up here. So, in reality, the blue team doesn't care about the space behind them. It is open space, right? And obviously that might be different if there's a tracer or there's someone else flanking, but that is open. So maybe their Reaper, if he wanted to make a play, could move into this open space because it's not contested. But for now, it's just open. Same thing for the other team. If we are to think about the back, the very, very, very far back of this map, right? Like I could switch the view in a second, like right here. I moved all the characters with me, but that works. Like back here, this is all open space. This doesn't matter because there's nothing going on back here. We're still fighting for the point, right? We're still fighting for this space up here. So none of this in the back matters. None of this over here matters. What matters is what's in front of us, the controlled space, and the contested space in the middle. Now that we've got a firm understanding on what space is and what kind of space exists within the game, let's talk about how we take and hold space. Generally, how to control space is through pressure for both taking and controlling. Opponents that are in the space that you want to control are your first priority to pressure. In most cases, pressure involves committing less important resources like attention and primary fire damage, or less important cooldowns like fire strike to try and force them out of these areas and sort of jockey for position. Next, we're going to talk about taking space. So before we start taking space, we first want to identify what space we actually want to take. This usually is the point or area around the point, something that you can use to help capture the objective. Then we want to take note of where the enemy is positioned, considering where is the tank, where is the back line, are there any angles holding me or my team back that I need to clear first. If the angles are holding my team back, can I pressure them, yada yada yada. So we're going to look at this example again, right? If we are the Sigma here playing this game and we want to take space, we have to think, right? Where do I want to go? The pretty simple answer is that we want to get to the point, right? How do we get to the point? Well, we want to take the the contested space that we have at this choke. And we want to move it back, right? This isn't good for us. We want to move it maybe here, right? The idea is that as the Sigma, we want to continue pushing through the map, so that way it's easier for our team to find angles, it's easier to find picks, and we get more map control, right? So, let's go through our checklist one more time. Identify what space we want to take. So, we want to take this space. This is the area we want to be in. We want to get this behind statue area cleared out, so that way we can start poking onto point. Then consider, where is the tank, where is the backline, and where are the angles that they're holding. So the tank is right here. Obviously, the Reinhardt's right here. What we want to be doing for the Reinhardt is what we just talked about on the section before, where we want to use less important cooldowns to put pressure onto the Reinhardt and make it harder for him to hold this choke. So, for example, maybe Brig Whip Shot to kind of boop the Rein backwards, Juno Torpedoes to put a little pressure on the Soj and his back line, right? And then, in this case, just Sig primary firing the shield, rocking, whatever. Basically, you and your team collectively are putting a lot of your less meaningful resources into the Reinhardt to make him feel pressure, right? If he has less shield, if he has less HP, he's going to want to move backwards. So, let's say that happens. In this example, the Reinhardt has given up the controlled space that we've been talking about, the contested space we've been talking about, and this is where the fight ends up. So, from what we were saying earlier, this is now the enemy controlled space. This is now, oh, kind of. We're going to rotate this guy. This is now our controlled space, right? We got behind statue. And then these little niches in the middle where the circles overlap. This is our contested space. And that's where we're going to want to be fighting, right? Boom. So, we can move through the map. This is good. This is good for us. Now we need to look, right, once we move into this space, what angles are holding my team back. So you have side fight on the right side with Soja Lucio, and main fight on the left side with the Rhine Reaper Kiri. You as the Sigma, right, you as the tank, need to clear out this Sojourn, right? The Sojourn on the right side. The reason that is let's remove the circles for a second, and let's say that we walk forward, and I go here, and the rest of my team is like, okay, my Sig is walking up, we are going to walk up. What's going to happen is because we didn't leave, or we didn't get the Sojourn out of here, the Sojourn now has a free little backline angle, right? Which is not great. What this is creating is the Reinhardt, the Reaper, and the Kiri are putting a lot of pressure on you, the tank, and anybody with you, like the Cass, while the Soja Lucio is putting a lot of pressure on your backline, which is really, really not good for you. So you're going to get less healing, they're going to do a bunch of damage to you, big no-no, right? Because they have angles and they have space. So, what you as the Sigma need to do first is you need to clear out the Soj. So, this line here is going to be hypothetically our Sigma damage, right? We shoot the Soj. Soj takes a bunch of damage, maybe your Cass walks up, maybe your Juno walks up, shoots the Soj a little bit, right? We're shooting Soj. She gets damage, slides backwards. The Lucio wants to go with her, so that way the Lucio doesn't die. Boom. This is what we were just talking about with the angles that could hold your team back. That angle is gone. Now, if we look at the rest of your team, and now that the Soj is gone, let's put these big circles back up, right? We now have all of the space that the Soj was just getting, or holding. And now they only have this little circle on point. And sure, there's some contested space around, right? Like this high ground might be considered contested space because you both can get there. You both maybe want that, This could be, the hotel could be considered contested space. That gives an angle on your backline, right? But for generality speaking, right? You have cleared the space, and you have made space. You went from a tiny circle that just encompassed your spawn, right? We just had the spawn. Then we moved to the back, and then now we have the big circle that's all around the statue. So this is how you do it. You slowly take the map how you can. You pressure whoever is holding the space, the Reinhardt or the Soj, whoever's there, out of their angles until you have more space than them. Once you have more space than them, your DPS get to kind of do the work, right? Let's send your Cass, your Juno on an angle. You get to pressure main fight. Your Genji maybe goes height and controls this contested space that we're talking about. Now you have all the angles, right? The fight before that we were talking about where the Soj had an angle on your backline, you now have the angles. The Genji can shoot their Soj, their Kiri, go for a dive while you're poking. The Cass now has an angle on the people that aren't shooting you, main fight. It's perfect. So this is how you make space. Now that we've gone into more of the macro of taking space, the how do I do it, who do I pressure in order to take this space, where do I go, all of this stuff, we need to talk about some of the micro. And the biggest micro that I want to talk about here is the use of natural cover. This is a concept that I think a lot of people miss, and this is something that separates a lot of high-ranked players from low-ranked players. What I mean by using natural cover is it allows your team to not use a lot of resources, or as many resources as they would normally need to enter or attack a certain space. I'll show an example in-game in a second, but what I'm referring to here mainly with tanks is going corner to corner, or cover to cover, which is allowing you as the tank player to take less damage while going through the space that you want to control. Taking a look at our example again, we've got it back to square one, just how we had it at the beginning of the video, right? You as the tank player and everyone else on your team, we use the minor resources to pressure the Reinhardt out of the angle. Cool, we do the whole song and dance, right? We move everyone back, we know the drill, we know the contested space, we know the controlled space. What you need to be thinking about is the Sigma now, right? Let's move them back even a little further just so we can get a clear idea. Where is the space that you want to be playing around, in the sense that where's the cover? Where is the corner? Where am I moving to, right? If I'm the Sigma, what I am thinking of immediately, outside of just pressuring the Soj, which is what we talked about earlier, is, we clear that Soj angle, right? My corners are here, out of the statue, so we want to move here to here. So now we could poke the Rhine from behind statue, we could poke the Soj from behind statue. Whereas earlier, this wall was our cover. So we're going from the wall to the statue. That is corner 1. Now, if we want to continue to move, we want to move probably to here. We want to pressure the Rhine out at this point. Eventually, we got to get them out of the point, right? We pressure the Soj Lucio back. We pressure the Rhine out a little bit, right? This is just for the sake of argument. Our next area that we want to be moving to as the Sig is right here. This is our new corner. So the Sig moves up here. Boom. So now you have this corner. You hide behind this wall. Poke, poke, poke. Hide behind the wall. Poke, poke, poke. Right? That's the idea. Eventually, maybe a Soj could come in through Hotel. This is your contested space that we were just talking about. You would need to do the same thing again on statue. You poke through here, get the Soj out of the contested space, but continue to walk forward. Now we'll change the view of the map. This works. Perfect. So, we've walked up to this corner, right? We're here. The Soj Lucio is back here, all the way back here. And let's say the Rhine is on this corner, right? Now, where is our next cover? Well, we're going to play here still. We're going to shoot, 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 shoot. Your team is going to wrap around. Your Genji might play up here. Your Cass might move to this cover with the Juno. Your Brig might stay with you, right? The idea is that eventually they're going to need to back up. Eventually you keep applying pressure to them. The Curie backs up, the Reaper backs up, the Rhine backs up. This is now where we move to the next corner. And our next corner would be right here. So Sig moves to here, and now you could duck between here and here, poke, 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 back to the corner, poke, 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 back to the corner, right? You get the gist. The idea is we are moving, when we are taking space, when the Reinhardt gives up his space on the defensive side, on the offensive side, we go, okay, I'm going to take space, where am I going to, where is the cover in that space? So, when we're back here, this is first cover, behind your point, right, or behind your, or near your spawn, sorry. So we're here. For moving forward, our next one is next to the statue. Our next one is right here over looking point. And then our third one is going to be right around this corner, looking kind of towards their spawn area. Corner, corner, corner. Every single time. The next concept we're going to be talking about in this video is holding space, which is very similar to taking space outside of one concept, which I call the line. The line is a simple concept. It's just an area on the map that you are preventing the enemy from walking past. Holding the line isn't the challenge with it, rather deciding where the line needs to be. The line needs to be deep enough to prevent the enemy from taking or pressuring important space, but not so deep that it splits you from your team or creates too much open space around where you're trying to hold. Again, when taking or holding space, you always need to be around cover. So, let's take a look at our little diagram again. In this case, we're going to be the Reinhardt, right? So we talked about their Sigma, or the Sigma, walking past, pressuring you out of the angles, right? It is possible for you as the Reinhardt player to not let that happen. The way that you do that is by conserving shield and playing around this cover, right? Eventually, their Cass or their Genji might go on an off angle, and you'll have to give up the space, which is fine. Giving up space isn't the end of the world. But, just as an example, this is the prime place for the line, right? Is this choke. Because it's utilizing, like in this case for Reinhardt, you have very short range damage, right? So you want to be utilizing that. You do a lot of damage on this line. If Sigma wants to walk past, he has to walk into the Soj, he has to walk into the Reaper, he has to walk into the Rhine. No one wants to walk past the line, right? You don't necessarily control the line. It's not exactly controlled space, because if you go into here and you go past it, you're in trouble. But this is the area you are just trying to maintain the controlled space, right? We saw with the attackers, when they moved out, and they moved up here, and they moved over here, there were more bubbles of yellow, right? There was a yellow bubble here, there was a yellow bubble here, there's a yellow bubble here, yellow bubble here. Right now, in this state of the game, with the line, there is one yellow bubble. There is one contested space, and it is right here. And that's what you as the defender need to be doing, is making sure there are as little yellow bubbles as possible to really pinpoint where you are defending. So, I've shown you an example of a good way to set the line. Let's show you the two bad ways of setting the line, right? Let's say I, as the Reinhardt player, think, well, I am Reinhardt. I need to be aggressive. I am going to set the line really early. You know, I wanna really get in there. So we're gonna make the line real close. Make the line right here. Okay. This is certainly a spot to hold. I mean, it's got the short range, you know, whatever, you got cover here. The problem with this is it does a couple things. It's got open space, right? So the Genji could just go flank you, you know. This isn't near the objective. You're not really preventing the space that the enemy wants to get to eventually, like their end goal, from being reached. You're just kind of being greedy, right? There's too many ways to get around. You can go through here, boom. You can go all the way through here in the hotel, boom, you're hit, right? So it's a bit too open. Outside of that, you're leaving your team way, 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 way too open. Because if your Reaper wants to hold up here with you, and eventually the line falls, right? Your shield drops and you have to back up. This is a real far distance to back up. It's a lot of space we got to move through. That's not fun for your Reaper. That's not fun for you, the big guy with no shield. Same thing with your Soj. It's really easy to pressure your Soj out of this angle, or even if your Soj is playing on the bus. That's pretty far up. So, this is an example of the line being too greedy. There's not enough natural cover, there's not enough reason to hold here regarding the objective, and it puts your team in danger. Now, let's look at the inverse of this problem. Let's look at a line that's too far back, right? Let's take a look. Let's say you as the Reinhardt player want to set the line right here. Okay. Well, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with this, right? It's a safe approach. That's what I'll say. It's a safe approach. The problem is when we looked at the original example, the line was here. Okay. Or not the line, sorry. The contested space was here, because we were all up here in front of the statue, and the enemy team was right in front of it, right? Cool. Well, the problem is, remember, we want not a lot of circles. We have a circle here, and then we have a circle here, and we have even a third circle back here in hotel. So you've given them too much space, right? Again, the original example where the line was at the choke, the enemy controlled space was just this. They only controlled the space right out of spawn. They had to really fight their way through the first choke. But now that you've set the line so far back, this is the enemy controlled space. You've almost doubled it, right? They now get everything behind statue, everything towards hotel, and then we haven't even talked about the high ground behind. They can go up the stairs, they can go up here, not this color, they can go on this high ground. And guess what? This is now controlled space for them. If they really want to go up there, they can do that. So this is an example of setting the line too far back. So, because we've used King's Row first point as our example for a majority of this video, we're going to look at King's Row third as our example for setting the line. So, I'm going to leave this image here for a few seconds, and I'm going to challenge you as the viewer to decide where you would place the line if you were playing defense. Okay, time's up. So, there are a couple spots that we could look at for setting the line. I think the first one, and the furthest one, is all the way up here. This is our example of the line being too far up, and not really, well, it's got a couple of problems, outside of just being too far away from the hypothetical objective, right? Because the cart probably is pushed past here. One, it's too close to their spawn. So they will have better spawn advantage than you, right? Let's say we have our soldier 76. If your guy gets killed and the enemy has a soldier and he gets killed, whoop, he's right here. Our guy has to go all the way out of spawn. Now we're here, right? So you're giving them an innate advantage for getting trades. Not great. Second thing is there's a lot of ways for them to just kind of abuse holding this angle. They've got the high ground, right? They could shoot you from the spawn high ground, which they have access to. There's angles over here, right? They have a lot of space behind them that they could utilize to pressure you out. The big one, though, the really, really big one, even outside of this isn't close to the objective or, you know, they have a lot of space to use, there's no cover, right? It's aggressive. There's a corner here, kind of, right? Like around where the enemy spawn is. But the problem is that you don't really have anywhere to retreat to, right? Let's say you're playing Cassidy or whatever. If you're holding this angle, boom, 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 shoot, 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 I'm low, right? I'm holding here. If they have a Cassidy, he can swing right around and hit you. And where are you going to go? You have to back all the way up, jump up here, and then what? Then you can go up to the high ground, then you can go through here. That's still not great for you, right? So this is just too far up. There's not enough cover. It's a little too far away from your spawn, a little too close to the enemy spawn, and probably wouldn't be, you know, close to the cart, which is a big no-no. Second area, we're going to Goldilocks this, that I would say I thought of, is like right here, all the way back here, which isn't terrible. Like, at some point, you're going to have to drop back to this cover, that corner, right? Maybe I can get a better angle. Yeah, like right here. This isn't terrible. The problem with this, again, if we're starting just at the, like, if we're very, very just starting at the beginning of third point, they're just coming out of spawn, you know, we have time to set up, this is too far back. Because we just gave blue team all of this space, right? That's a lot of space. And the big one, the big space that you gave them is inside of the mega room, because now you're giving them an opportunity to peek through the mega room, which the mega room, like this area right here, would be contested space, because you got blue team here and red team here, right? This is your line, you're the red team, enemy blue team, boom, contested space. The problem is they have the best entrance to it, because your only entrance to the mega room is in the contested space. They get an entrance all the way back here, because this is their space. Boom. And they can go in through here, get the mega, and they have the mega, right? It's closer to their space. So you're giving them too many angles, you're giving up too much meaningful space, yada yada. The Goldilocks, the medium temperature porridge, or whatever the story was about, is right here. This is great. It's great for a few reasons. One, you are limiting the enemy space. Let's take a look at blue team space. They can get this little window up here. It's cute. It's a cute little window. Then they get all of the space to the left on this high ground area, which is like okay. It's decent for poking out, right? And that's like kind of it, right? As long as you're holding this line, or maybe it would be closer like this if you're playing the corner, that's the space they get. They're boxed in to this area back here, and maybe out here a little bit. You, as red team, get all of this. You get all of this lane. You get this high ground up here, the back high ground, like your supports, you know, maybe you get like a Soj and your other supports could sit back on that high ground. And then the big one is you get this top high ground. Boom, throw your Hanzo up there, while also keeping the mega. So you have gave your teammates better angles, while also giving yourself good cover to play around on a good corner. That makes it hard for the enemy to get you off the corner, and makes it easier for your DPS to hold strong angles that, again, they're going to have to break you out of this initial, like if I'm Hazard, they're going to have to break you out of this initial corner before they even think about touching your Hanzo or your Soj. And then you have the Mega, and yada yada, right? It's too much. It's too much for the enemy to deal with in one go. So this would be the best option. This corner and this line right here. The second main job of a tank that we're going to talk about in this video is pressuring angles. So we've talked about this before, but we're going to dive into a few different examples, specifically using dive and poke, because we really went into more brawl specific stuff for holding space, taking space, all that stuff. So When I say angles, I'm talking about a point on the map where DPS or supports are holding an angle different from their team that needs to be clear. So, for example, if we take a look here, like I'll put a Ramatra down here just for fun. If, like, what I'm talking about is the Ana, the Soldier, and the Ram all can kind of see from the right side of the screen to this line, right? They can see around the corner up to this high ground more, right? The angle that we're seeing is this Sojourn. This is the real, like, off-angle-esque thing, because our soldier, or our Sojourn, sorry, has a deeper angle than the rest of her team, can see deeper into the high ground, right? Another example might be, let's say our soldier isn't on this low ground, and he goes up here to this top left high ground. We'll do that for now, right? So, that is an example of, like, our soldier has another angle here, right, where he could see this, he could see into here. It's a stronger angle. He could see down here if the card's down here, whereas the Sojourn can only see into the back. He can see towards the spawn, if you guys know what I'm talking about. In most cases, your goal as a tank player is to control as many angles as possible so your team in turn can take more angles. The more angles in space you can make for your team, the easier it is for them to find value in their roles, which is why tank is the best solo carry role in the game, right? So that's true. Right now, their team has a better position than ours. Simply, like, if we're imagining we have a Sierra here, and then, like, an Emre on this back left high ground that we can't really see, they have the better angles. They can see down, they can see across this entire lane, the whole team. They can poke into our side, right? Whereas we can only really poke down this lane and into theirs. They get better poke onto the cart, and then they have stronger angles because there's more cover on this high ground. There's more cover on these two high grounds than ours because it's more open. And obviously, because they're on defense, it's better for them to have the stronger angles because they just get to play slower because we have to push into them, right? So, angles are usually the best way for you to decide when and how you as the tank player should be taking space. The general rule of thumb is that if leaving an angle uncontested could result in a teammate being killed, that angle needs to be cleared before taking the space. So we're going to use this example mainly for talking about what angles we need to pressure in what order, and then how that relates to the team fight and setting up your team, right? So let's start here. I'm going to give a few examples just for me talking, and then I'll leave a few for you guys to do, just like I did with the holding space section. So here, the first thing that I want to point out is let's talk about what is the strongest angle, right? And when I say strongest angle, I mean, or the most aggressive angle, right? What character on the map, on the enemy team, is tanking an angle that will have the most effect on my team's ability to push this fight? In my opinion, it's the Soldier. And the reason it's the Soldier is because he's closer to my high ground, closer to the left high ground than the main high ground, which you can't say for the Soj. She's further away, she has the spread, right? It's going to be a little harder for her to hit her shots, and then she's got the fallout with the rail. The Soldier's going to be able to track easier. He can maybe hit a micro missile. He's got the mega health pack down here on his side. He's got LOS of his Ana if he runs through here, and he's got better cover than our Sojourn, right? This is the most aggressive angle. So, you as the Winston player, like, order of operations here, just like math class in 6th grade. We need to jump over here, pressure the Soldier out, and you don't need to kill him, right? This is something a lot of tank players miss that I want to touch on right now. Tank players, or players in general, every role, think killing people is the way you win the game. That's not how you win the game. You only get kills if you earn them, or if the other person's stupid, which as you get higher up in the ranks, the stupidity doesn't happen. You have to earn the kills. Right here, you don't earn this kill but just by forcing the Soldier out of the angle, right? You're not going to kill him. Good Soldier is just going to run away. Cool, he's going to go back over here. What you have done, though, is you've now made an opportunity for maybe your Sierra can now take this angle, and now your Sierra's poking the on the Soldier. Ooh, scary little angle right there, right? So, we've cleared Soldier. That was the most aggressive angle. Now I would look at this picture and say, okay, now what is the aggressive angle again, right? You might say it's the Ram on the bottom. He's the furthest up. And I don't think that this is necessarily a not aggressive angle by the Ram. It's scary, but remember, we're playing like a monkey thing with, like, you know, 2 pokers. And even if we have brawlers, like if we got a Tracer in here instead of the Samurai, like let's get Samurai out here. If we got a Tracer here, that's still not that bad. Who cares? So Tracer can go all the way up here, whatever. So we'll put the Tracer there. So I would say that the next most aggressive angle is the Sojourn, right? Because as we established before, the Sojourn can see here into our spawn, or not into our spawn, but into the cart area and onto the left high ground, where the Ram and the Soldier and the Ana can only see, like, I need to turn it better, like here maybe, right? This is a bigger angle than this is. So the next one to clear is the Sojourn. And again, we just talked about this. The Ana's right here, the Soldier's right here. In theory, there's probably going to be another support right there that we're not talking about right now. Sojourn slides back. We're not going to get the kill. But look at the position that we're in now versus the position we started in. My Sierra's here, my Tracer's here, I'm here, right? Versus, at the start, my Tracer was there, or my Emre, whoever it was, the Soldier was there, the Soj is there. They're more spread out, they have more angles. Our only angle was here and a little bit of this. Now that we have backed everybody up, their only angle is down this lane, while our angles include here from the Sierra, and then here from the Tracer. You've created 3 angles, right? It's that simple. And it's something that is really intangible. And it's something that a lot of players don't think about and don't, right? Our brains are wired for dopamine, right? Our brains want to feel like we have done something. And kills are really the only thing that we get. Oh, I have only done my job, or I've only done good this fight because I got a kill, right? But no. You as the Winston player carried this fight by being smart, right? They win this fight. If you go and jump the Sojourn, and then this is a bubble, you put the bubble down and you zap, 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 and the Sojourn slides away, and then you're like, I need to get my kill because this is how I get value as Winston. You zap, 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 zap the Ana and the Soj and whatever. You're drawing attention, right? Which is whatever. But look at the Soldier. He's going to beam your Sierra. The Ram now can walk and get your Sierra. The Tracer doesn't have space to get in because she has to cross this whole lane, right? And she has to walk through the Soldier, walk through the Ram, right? If she goes around back, even if she goes around back, the back line still has, connection, right? The Ana and the Soj don't really have pressure because you're not splitting them with the bubble. It's a whole thing, right? Whole kit and caboodle. Whereas, again, the example that we just had, let's play that in reverse, right? Hit the Soldier. Boom, he retreats. Let's put the Soj back. Hit the Soj. Boom, she retreats. Now look at this. Now let's imagine we drop off this high ground, we get healed by our team, you poke with the Ram for a second, and then you go. Boom. Now my Sierra can shoot back at their team. I'm coming from main. I bubble. Excuse me. I bubble. And then my Tracer comes with a hit. I would bet a lot of money that if this was a real game, you would kill somebody here. And that's your reward for being good and doing good Overwatch, right? So, moral of the story here is if you're playing Winston or any other character, don't trust your monkey brain even if you're playing monkey, right? The point is that you have to earn your kills, you have to set them up, you have to clear the angles, and not let your team die while you feed before you go get your kills. Because now that you have cleared the angles, you get the kills. Awesome stuff. The final main job of a tank that we're going to talk about in this video is managing resources. Before we get too deep into this concept, we need to define what resources are. Resources, in my opinion, include the following 4 items: HP, cooldowns, attention, and space. Since we've never covered space earlier in the video, I'll only reference it when needed. But the 3 main ones, HP, cooldowns, and attention, we're going to deep dive into. So, let's start with HP. As a tank player, the HP trade is the first resource you should be tracking in a given fight. This resource is an indicator on when you should go for soft engagements or hard engagements, and then when you should start baiting for other resources. As mentioned before, the main way this is done is through the tank HP trade. This phrase is essentially a fancy way to talk about the tank 1v1. In all 3 styles of play, those being dive, poke, and brawl, your goal before making any decision is to gain an HP advantage over your tank counterpart, or simply to have more HP than them. This can be done in a few ways, like shooting each other, trading soft cooldowns, etc., etc. So, we're going to take a look at this example from the OWCS Stockholm playoffs between Geek and T1. We got Kuffa and Jasmine, two of the best tank players in the world at the time. This is a sort of old-ish example, but I feel like it still really applies. And I really like it because it shows a lot of things that we've talked about previously in some negative lights and some positive lights, but we'll see. So, we're going to start off here with Kuffa. Yep, he's going to take some damage. Wait. His HP. Now, here's the first example that I want to talk about with Jasmine and Kuffa in the HP trade. We can look at the top, and we can see that Kuffa has a lot less HP than Jasmine. Cool. Okay. Kuffa's getting healed, whatever. The big thing I want to point out is Jasmine's positioning and Jasmine's choice to walk here. So, Kuffa just used shield on the corner, which means that he's about to get healed up. So his HP, like him being down on HP, doesn't really matter unless Jasmine uses form and walks him, right? The big problem is that Jasmine is not only walking through open space to an area that doesn't really help, right? Like this corner that Kuffa's on, ideally is what Jasmine is trying to walk to and control, but isn't really going to work like that. So essentially what's happening here is Jasmine is walking through open space to a place where they have no cover, and they're not using cooldowns to help. Eventually, what we're going to see is Kuffa's going to punish that. So, Jasmine moves to the left. Boom, boom, boom. Now, something important that I want to talk about here that I didn't mention previously in the video is with this HP trade, one of the biggest things that you need to be worried about is armor health. So what armor health is that's, if you look at the bottom left at Kuffa's HP, that is the yellow health, right? Now, some new people to Overwatch might be wondering, like, what is it? You know, I've seen it in the game. It doesn't really, you know, it just looks different than other health. I don't know what it does. Well, armor health does, and I'll pop up the exact number on the screen, is armor health reduces the damage taken by a certain percentage. So what that means for the tank, and what this means for most tanks in the game, and the way that I do it as a champ tank player, is that if I'm looking to go aggressive, or start poking, or do something, you know, just do something aggressive, right? I look at my HP, and I do it, and I do aggressive things, and I poke and do whatever I need to do until I don't have armor health. When I don't have armor health, that's when you chill out. Because when you're shooting a tank, and they have armor health and they're getting healed, they're going to get healed more than you're going to do damage to them. But as soon as the armor health is gone, it's equal. Because it's just however much you're doing versus however much they're healing, right? So, what we see here is Jasmine doesn't use shield. Jasmine walks into open space, there is no cover around, and their HP is depleted. So, in Kuffa's POV, not only because of the positioning and everything, but even if Jasmine has cover, if I'm Kuffa in this situation, I'm going to look to punish this HP, because you have such an advantage in the HP trade, right? You have 250 HP, full health, and cooldowns. Jasmine has full cooldowns as well, but is about to be at less than half HP. So let's see how this plays out. Yep, so Jasmine gets low, and now both players pop form, and both players have a backline. The reason that this is better for Geek is because Kuffa won the HP trade. He started the fight with the same amount of HP. Jasmine chose to walk into open space, didn't go to a cover, didn't use cooldowns to get them there, and then lost half of their HP. So as this brawl breaks out, Jasmine has half of their HP, Kuffa has full HP. And we're going to see why this matters. Cool, right? Look at this. Proud outplays Mimone, right? Kills Mimone. So Geek are in a 4v5. T1 can no longer push this and can no longer take a 4v5 winning fight because Jasmine lost the HP trade. That's how important this concept is, right? T1 want to push here. They have the advantage, all this, we just talked about there, 4v5. But they can't because Jasmine does not have cooldowns, because Jasmine lost the HP trade and was forced to use their cooldowns defensively in order to not die. So, what we're going to see here is this fight is essentially a stalemate, right? Same thing again. We're going to watch. We go up to the corner, and now both tanks are going to wait. This is the stalemate, right? Now is when the HP trade starts again, when both people start peeking. We're going to look at Jasmine's HP. Okay, Kuffa uses the shield. Again, if we're going to talk about straight up HP, this is more effective HP, right? We have 1,000 to work with versus nothing here. Jasmine does not use the shield for some reason. I don't really understand it. And Jasmine is now on half HP. Watch what happens. Jasmine is half HP. Jasmine walks on half HP. Jasmine not only walks on half HP, but does not walk to cover and continues to walk into open space, which is punished. So, what we just watched in that whole sequence, right, and this is a bit of a dog on Jasmine, and Jasmine's one of the best tank players in the world, but this is clearly just a pretty ugly example, is a couple of bad cases of not using natural cover and the emphasis on the HP trade, right? We won't go through the whole thing, but just the spark notes. We poke, right? Guffa starts the fight. The HP trade is now won by Kuffa because they're both on half HP. Jasmine and T1 can now no longer win the brawl because Geeke's tank has the advantage. They get a kill, but cannot push off of it because they lost the HP trade, they lost the cooldown trade, all of this stuff. And then, attempting to push the advantage, Jasmine walks into open space, not using any cooldowns, and gets punished. So, this is a good example of, one, why the tank trade, HP trade matters, and two, why moving between cover to cover matters that we talked about earlier in the video. So, just because the HP trade is kind of a weird concept and is hard to understand, I wanted to do one more example with a comp. They're two comps that are very similar, right? So we got Al-Kadesh with Vestola on Zarya and Virtus Pro with Ice Nam on Zarya. What we're going to see here is it's going to be hard to comprehend, and that's okay. We're going to break it down, and we're going to see how this HP trade happens. I'm going to let it play out, and then we'll break it down. Okay, so there's a couple things that just happened there. First thing I want to point out is the difference in comps. The biggest difference is Lucio versus Alari, right? For Virtus Pro, the big thing that you have is aggression. You can walk their backline and walk their team a lot easier. And for Kadesh, you want to be playing slower, and you want to be playing for angles more, right? You want to be focusing on holding multiple parts of the map. So what we're going to see is Virtus Pro using their Lucio to their advantage. So right here, practically we are even, right? It's 16 HP, who cares? We are even. We have our backline, their backline, Zarya's walked, and this is the starting position in this mega room, right? So for Vestola, his line would be on the doorframe, right? And for us, we are trying to push Vestola out. So what's going to happen is as soon as we start getting beamed and we see cooldowns come out, we're going to bubble. We are the first ones to use bubble, and we are damaging Vestola as we have bubble in our walking. So we see Vestola go down to maybe a quarter, right? And we're at full. So we have one bubble left. Vestola's at a quarter of their HP and just used their bubble. This is a big mistake by Vestola, just on the basis that we used bubble too late, right? Again, the HP trade. Vestola has far less HP than Ice Nam, and you have the same amount of bubbles now that Vestola is just bubbled. So, we're going to see what happens. We have bubbled. Great play by Ice Nam. What happens here that is really weird to pick out and might seem... It's super nitpicky, but it's a great play. What happens is we walk. As soon as the bubble comes out, what happens is we duck behind cover. We go behind this pillar. So Vestola is not able to fully maximize their bubble because you can't be shot. You're behind the cover, right? Moving cover to cover. Again, this is why this is so important. Now that the bubble is gone, we are left with Ice Nam at full HP, Vestola just starting to recover back to full HP, and we have gained the space. Now we're going to see it happen again. We're even on bubbles, and now we're even on HP. We're going to walk with our bubble first. Vestola does a better job this time of bubbling to make sure that we're even, and then we're going to take the corner, right? Basically, that first HP trade mattered so much because you had more charge. Ice Nam has more charge than Vestola because you took more damage walking with your bubble, and then when Vestola tried to match, we sit behind the pillar, and they don't get as much charge. That is really important for the second HP trade, and why Vestolo backed up. That's what, like, pro play, it gets down to that little bit of micro. So, now we're going to watch in real time why the HP trade matters, even when both tanks are playing correctly, right? We saw in the previous example that Jasmine kind of just threw and died. Both teams are even now, except for the HP trade. Virtus Pro wins the HP trade. What happens? Okay, we do a little more HP trade. That's whatever. We're still winning. Vestola can't clear that corner. And then Icenom decides to use the space that he got from the HP trade, and we get a pick. And the reason that we get a pick is we can look backwards. Because Icenom peeks this at some point, and I want to freeze frame on it and show. So out here, we can see their Pharah and their Emre are both holding this kind of mega angle. Our Pharah's out here, our backline's with us. I don't really know where Kevster is. The point here, though, is we have cleared the entire open part of the map, or of this point, right? Our Pharah has point, and then we have the entire middle part, right? So Aid can't hold here because we can speed on it. The Zarya is not with Aid because they were too focused on taking left side, and we won left side. So you got more space than their other tank because you won the HP trade, which led to Kevster getting the kill on Aid. The second resource that we're going to discuss is cooldowns. Cooldowns are a pretty simple concept to grab onto when it pertains to managing resources. Your job here is to try and get the enemy team to use cooldowns while demanding little from your team. This can be done in many stages of the fight, such as the tank HP trade, when pressuring angles, or during hard engagements. The reason cooldowns are your responsibility as the tank is because you have the HP pool to tank a lot of cooldowns where your DPS or support players would not. For example, an Ashe Dynamite, Ana Nade, and Sigma Rock would not kill a tank outright. It might get you close to death with good follow-up and damage, but it's very possible to live through it. However, if we put a Genji in the same situation, just one of these cooldowns is enough to derail a fight completely. So, when thinking about cooldown management, it's your job as a tank to safely apply enough pressure to a target to make them use a cooldown. When managing cooldowns as a tank player, it's incredibly important to relay all information to your team. Your comms should include not only what cooldowns you get out, for example, Ana you sleep, but also what cooldowns you are using, such as jumping in or rocking X target. This not only tells your team what cooldowns they no longer have to wait for before going aggressive, but allows them to play off your tempo, which increases your solo carry potential. So, when we're talking about cooldowns that they have used, like sleep for example, if you're playing with a Genji and he wants to go for a blade but he's worried about getting slept by their Ana, it's really important that you go in, try and get the Ana to sleep you or you sleep on you, so that way your Genji can go in. Same thing, if your Genji wants to go in, you should probably be going with him. So you could say, okay, Genji, I'm going in 3, 2, 1, or jumping, or something along the lines. We're going to do a quick example with Junbin's Ball here. I think Ball is, as a character, is really, really good at two of the things, actually at all of the things, but two of the things specifically, which is attention, which we'll get to next, and cooldowns. So, what we're going to see from Junbin here is a majority of this fight he is going to spend just tickling enemies, poking them out, and getting as many cooldowns out as he can. And particularly why Ball is better than other tanks at just getting cooldowns out is, as we mentioned before, you need to be getting more cooldowns out of the enemy team than your team is using. So when I say that, I mean if Junbin goes in on Ball, Vigilante should not be having to use nade and shooting him to heal him the entire time while getting the cooldowns out, right? You want Vigilante to have to look at you and do as little as possible to keep you alive while you get things out. Same goes for Brawl. Like if you're playing Reinhardt, you probably don't want, you don't want your BAP to need to MO you every fight. Save that for your DPS, right? Take as little damage as possible and use as little resources from your team while getting a lot out of the enemy team. So let's take a look at how Junbin does this. So they're staging top left with the cat. The cat casts. He's looking, and then he's gonna go for a wolf. Oop. So we saw a couple of things here. Obviously the play was for Junbin and Vigilante to combine with a nade like engagement thing. It didn't end up working, but that's fine because we get cooldowns out. So we can list the cooldowns we use, list the cooldowns they use. So we move. We see nade, grappling hook, and shields from our team, right? What we see from the enemy team is the cat, like, the character's so new, I don't even know the name of the cooldown. It's the, like, burst thing, the burst heal that we're seeing, the little, like, wave. Then cast hinder, or cast nade, cast roll, and then eventually we're going to see monkey jump, and then on our left, if you listen really closely, I'll go back, you can hear tracer blink. Look at it one more time. So you see the tracer on top, go in. There's roll, burst, nade, jump, blink. So we traded 3 cooldowns, grappling hook, nade, and shields, which only 2 of them are super important, nade and shields, for jump, which is an important cooldown because they can't jump your backline. All of Cass's cooldowns, so Cass is now vulnerable, and the cat's burst heal, which is the only anti-dive tool that they have besides literally dragging somebody away. And blink, which blink is like whatever. So you won, or Junbin won the cooldown trade here, which is good. The last resource we're going to be talking about in this video is attention. Like cooldowns, attention's a pretty simple concept, but unlike cooldowns, attention provides a lot of intangible value that most players can't see or measure. So, we talked about it in the angle section, but intangible value is just something that you don't really see or don't really think about a bunch, like the amount of map space that you have, or in this case, the amount of people looking at you. Attention simply refers to the act of getting somebody to look at you, the tank player. This applies not only to your team, but the enemy team as well. A general rule of thumb is that the more enemies looking at you, the better, and the less your teammates need to look at you, the better. But this isn't true all the time. What this means is that it's the same principle of cooldowns. The less your team has to use on you, less cooldowns, the less attention your team needs to do for you in order for you to get value, the better. And it's the opposite for the enemies. The more the enemies have to do to punish you or to try and force you out, the better. The reason drawing attention to yourself is beneficial is the same reason it is for cooldowns. You have the largest HP pool in the lobby, and it's your job to use that to your advantage. In order to create the most impact possible out of attention, we need to be taking attention away from the most important role on the enemy team, which is the support. Generally speaking, if you are getting the supports to look at you, not only are they not looking at the tank, but they are oblivious to potential plays from your DPS. While it's most impactful to draw attention from supports, getting tank and DPS players to look at you can also provide value given the state of the game. So we're going to start with the second part, getting the tank and DPS players to look at you. In this example, we have Kellen versus Junbin in the tank duel, and we have 2 very, very different comps, right? We have the Tracer and the Kiri Mirror. I mean, that's kind of a given. They're 2 of the most broken characters in the game, but you have Mauga versus Winston, Soj versus Cass on hit scan, and then Wu Yang versus Lucio for main support. So, if we look at this from Kellen's perspective, you have a Mauga and a, what's his name, Cassidy. Not good, right? Cassidy right-click, burns through your bubble, burns through your HP, and he's really hard to pin down and kill because of roll in his higher HP pool. Junbin is Mauga. We all have played a ranked game against Mauga. We know that those guns can burn your HP real fast, and you're not really going to want to take a duel. So, Crazy Raccoons know this. They know they have the advantage because they're playing Cass and Mauga into Winston. So we're going to see how Kellen plays this. So, let's stop there. What did we just see? The truth is a whole lot of nothing. But the real, deep truth is that Kellen just won the fight by not dying and doing nothing. So let's explain. So we see Kellen walk. They now see he's on Winston, right? Cool. What is the first thing Kellen does? Kellen jumps to the high ground, and he pokes. They now know he's up there. The cast saw him. Stalker's going to communicate to Junbin, hey, the monkey's on the top main high ground, right? Ba 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 ba. Shoots. Then he jumps. Well, he shoots the Tracer and then he jumps. Boom. Watch this. So, right here, he is staging to start shooting their backline. What this means is, from Crazy Raccoon's perspective, and Kellen's perspective, really, he's jumping up here to get a better angle to eventually dive the backline, right, to eventually jump onto Chorong and Vigilante and Stalker and try and get a kill. Boom, he zaps them, he's shooting. Judman sees this and immediately ignores Chronic. He's shooting Chronic, trying to pressure him out of the angle that he's holding in main. He sees Kellen jump to the high ground. He's like, nope, we're killing Kellen. We are getting Kellen. This comp can kill Kellen. We're going to do it. So he moves. You see the Lucio start to stage on the stairs, right? You see the cast. You could see people moving through the room to try and move up and kill Kellen. As soon as he draws the attention, he drops it. So Junbin, Chorong, Heesang, and Stalker, the entire team, really, all just turned to start trying to pressure Kellen out. And as soon as he gets them all to turn, as soon as he sees he got the attention, he leaves. So just by jumping to the high ground, he forced Judman to leave main and leave Chronic alone. He forced Heesang to forget about shooting Kellen's backline and start shooting Kellen, and forced Chorong and Stalker to turn their attention away from whatever they were doing and the angles they were holding to start moving to Kellen. We're going to see it happen again. The Tracer's shooting him on low ground. As soon as the Mauga sees that Kellen is on the low ground, he turns and uses Cardiac to start shooting him. Nope. Kellen jumps to the high ground and uses Bubble. Kellen has done fuck all this fight. He has shot a couple right clicks, he has jumped to the high ground twice and used one bubble. And the reason that this is important is because Crazy Raccoon is doing fuck all, because all they're trying to do is force out Kellen. All of their attention is on Kellen, and Kellen played it perfectly by not doing anything. Because Crazy Raccoon was just waiting for Kellen to fuck up so they could kill him, and Kellen didn't fuck up. And because they have such a pokey comp with the Tracer, the Soj, and the Wu Yang versus the Lucio and the Cast, they have the longer angles, right? So they want to be playing slower fights, and they want to be playing fights that are on longer angles. They eventually win this fight because Kellen doesn't get punished, and they play the game that they want to play. This is attention right here, right? You are drawing attention from the enemy team. Did CJ and Luke Mino didn't have to do shit to help Kellen there. He took no damage because all he did was move around the map, say, hey, I'm right here, have the other team try and move to punish him for it, and then just leave. We are going to look at one more example for attention just to show off the value of distracting the backline or gathering attention from the enemy backline. So, taking a look at Zeta versus T1, look at the alts, right? Proud has Emery ult, Donghawk has Primal, and then the other side, Knife has Emery ult, Proper has Pulse Bomb, Violet has Sun, or whatever the Ilariel is called, and then Ana has Nano. So, there's a very, very, very clear ult advantage by Zeta. Zeta should be able to take this fight really aggressively and get more kills, right? So, we're going to look at how this plays out. We're going to first notice the positions that everyone's in. T1's backline is sitting on the bridge and in ship, while Milgaru and Proper are staged on low ground. Zest is also staged on low ground, probably taking a little Tracer duel. We have Knife on the box on top right, which he's eventually just going to jump off and join the fight with the Monkey and the Tracer. And then we have Shu on top left, and Violet, I believe, underneath. Yeah, you can see the beam poking out in between the Tracer and the Winston in the bottom left. So, we're going to just watch and see what happens. The Donghawk misreads.
Nanoboost administered.
Okay. So let's rewind real quick and let's just see what happened. T1 built up to a Nano and gave it to Zest, the Tracer player. And Zeta used the Emre Nano alt combination thing that has been really, really popular and really good recently. So, how does this fight play out? Starting off, I believe Emre goes in. We're a little further back here, that's okay. There, Emre goes in with the ult. We hear it go off, and then he gets nanoed. We can see at the top right. So, Donghawk makes the wrong read. I think he assumes that Violet on Alari is underneath. Not there. He immediately moves. He sees the Ana shot, like the contrail, and he knows that Ana's on top right. His first instinct is immediately to cut off the Ana, which he does. And we could see on the bottom right, we heard from that shot, we'll go back a little bit, that we can tell Violet is looking at Dunghawk, right? We hear him shoot Dunghawk. We know that both supports at this very moment are looking at Dunghawk. He jumps. You hear the Alari shot. You see it chunk his HP. And now we're shooting the Ana. Notice, Dunghawk does not kill the Ana. But Violet is attempting to heal people, but they're completely out of his range. And Shu is completely distracted by Dunghawk while he's trying to rotate to help his team. Keep shooting. Both of them, right? Violet has to turn to heal Shu because Dunghawk is just poking him out. And Shu can't move because he's too low. Now, our Tracer gets nanoed, right? And we continue to just stay here and get this backline out. It's the same thing as before with, shoot, I forgot the tank player. I think it was, I forgot his name. Well, it's the same thing as the example before, where our monkey player didn't do too much, right? Our monkey player isn't jumping in and splitting people with bubbles and blah, 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 right? The point is that Dunghawk jumped high ground, forced Shu into a position where he couldn't stay on the high ground, right? Shu wants to stay there because he can see his Emray and he can see into the fight. Dunghawk jumps it and puts a bubble on it. This is now drawing Shu's attention. Shu's attention is, I cannot stay on this high ground because if I do, I will die to the monkey, so I must drop. Now that Shu has dropped, he no longer can heal his team, and his attention is completely drawn by the Winston that is behind him poking him, right? So Shu can't move. There's no safe position. And Dunghawk has just won the fight by keeping Shu's attention on him the entire time while not needing Skewed or Blitz to heal him, which allows Zest to come in and finish Dunghawk's initial engagement. So, that is an example of what you need to be doing to the enemy backline in order to get value. Before jumping into your next rank game, test yourself on these concepts. Watch your own gameplay and see if you're skipping anything. When I'm taking space, am I using natural cover? When I'm holding space, am I setting the line or a kill box? Am I choosing the right angles to pressure? Am I winning the HP trade? Am I drawing the right cooldowns from their team? Am I drawing enough attention from their team, or too much from mine? These concepts are the fundamental building blocks of playing every tank in the game. Without mastering all three concepts, your climb on any hero will be much harder. Once you have a strong grasp on these concepts and how they relate to your hero pool, you will not only start to see improvements in your gameplay and rank, but you will start to expand your approach to the game, which will allow you to tackle more advanced concepts, which are the key to ranking up. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments. I also offer private coaching for both teams and individuals. If you're looking for the fastest way to improve and rank up, this is the best option for you. If you want to set up a session with me, contact me on Discord, which is Karkanos360, and also linked below. I want to give a thank you to OBS Sojourn for the VODs that I used in this video for the examples. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.